And like, especially even in the organizing space, we really love like I call it the Greta Thunberg effect. We really love a standalone activist who is so intelligent and formidable and influential and wow, like they are once in a generation type person who's just like out there. And it's like Greta Thunberg does not do any of her organizing alone. The media might focus on her, but really look at this photo. She's never by herself. She's organizing with people. She can't do this by herself.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Hope you're looking after yourselves. Welcome to another episode of The Student Guide, where we discuss amazing topics with amazing guest speakers. And we are proud to say this is the first episode, 2025. Definitely almost didn't mix up the years. But yeah, we've got a lot of stuff planned, both as an organization, but also for the wonderful people watching or listening to our content. So definitely keep an eye on the space. But we're going to keep the conversation flowing, keeping the good times going, and we're going to learn more with a lot of cool new people. And that includes our amazing guest speakers today. As I always say, I do not like to do introductions. I think it's best for us to hear from these amazing people themselves. So instead, we're going to hand over to our amazing guest speaker. Jemmar, could we know a bit more about you and what you do?
Hi, I'm Jemmar. I hate doing bios, but trying to summarize it, I'm a Rice Man campaigner, so Sound. I'm a co-founder of a campaign called The Halo Collective Data Code, and I'm the founder of another campaign called Collective Punishment, and the fact that collective was in both names was more intentional. Yeah, these are things that I do outside of my day job. I'd rather not talk about my day job. But yeah, that's
it. Perfect. No, thank you. It's an amazing introduction. We're gonna dive into more about what you do in just a sec. But as everyone knows, if you're an avid listener or watcher, you will know that we have a segment called 44 Questions, brought to you by the amazing Amanda from 44 Words. And with this segment, we ask our guest speakers. Amanda, picks our question for our guest speakers based on the information our guest speakers provide with us. So Amanda thought long and hard. She was discussing like what potential questions she could ask you. She was saying there are plenty that could match essentially your bio.
okay.
And basically, give me 1 minute. Now my laptop has decided to freeze.
That's fine. I mean, the build up to the question is yeah.
Okay, so if you were to write an essay on the current state of creativity, what would be the first line?
Oh my gosh, it's a question that I cannot answer because I literally before we started recording, I was saying that I don't consider myself to be a creative. And I don't feel like I am a person that can answer that question, but I'm just going to try. What would the essay be about?
What would be the first line?
What would be the first line? I'd say, from what I see the creative industry starts, that's the first line. That's what let's say, yeah.
Fair. Any reason in particular?
I think about, I hate to say it, but I think about what I've seen on X, or as Twitter, but I suppose Twitter, is like, I think there's like some university, like some acting university that like, I don't quote me on this, but like they're no longer accepting like students for the undergraduate programs. They cut those things out, but I think they're accepting people for the masters. And it's like it's a institution that like, I don't think there's an institution, acting institution. Basically, lots of British actors have gone through this institution, and then someone was in the comments like, "Oh, really wealthy? Why can't they say the institution? Because it's money, right?" And also, it is a not a good question, but an interesting one. Why can't the alum who are wealthy enough, give back? So the institution that they went into, other people go. The conversation we see online is that the creative industry it's really hard for working class people to get into and to thrive in. And that also is I saw TikTok, social media, I get a lot of that information, social media, people can tell. But there's a TikTok about this artist that's talking about like, you know, rich kids or rich adults cosplay as like working class and struggling, because it's NGI and it's, you know, the art, it adds flavor to the work and stuff like that. I think pairing the two, just knowing that like working class people cannot get into and thrive in these industries, combined with the people dominating the industries who have all the privilege and support, nepotism, all that stuff backing them to make them be able to do whatever they want to do in their lives. Cosplaying and us is, I don't know, it's kind of fun to me. It's in my anyway, and that's the best way I can describe it.
That's right.
But this is just like a random thought that I said I do it for like on the best person to write essay. Creativity. Because I still don't see myself as a creative, even though technically I am. But yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. But yeah, thank you very much for that. And I think, the creative industries, I think, are going through. Well, I think there's two things that you mentioned I think are really important to discuss. So I think one, definitely like universities as a whole are going through an interesting time. Funnily enough, we both met through Brunel. Brunel is also going through an interesting time. I'm not sure if you're aware. We did a podcast episode. That's clearly a plug. But yeah, so essentially, the Brunel is at a stage where this current academic term, so the second term of 2025, they're letting go of, I think it's like 130 academics and then like maybe like 70 plus like support staff. So that can include like people who do administration work, people from, because essentially they're in a bit of a tough situation. And yeah, essentially like we were saying about like the like certain industries being not certain industries, certain courses being like impacted. Like I don't know specifically about like, or rather, I'd rather not comment specifically on like certain courses, but I know like from students there, they've also said like they've had like a difficult time because it's like things like uncertainty, especially like third year students. There's uncertainty on like, is my supervisor going to be here? Like by the time my dissertation is due.
Yeah. I think it's a very interesting point because universities at the end of the day, they are businesses. You know, their main thing is to make a profit. And I mean, one of the last things that I remember when I left Brunel was that they were accepting applications for the medicine course that they were creating. But the school hadn't been built yet. So it's international student applications, obviously international students, student fees. And yeah, it's like, it's not unique to Brunel, you know, making profit is the most important thing. And yeah, they do everything to make sure that, you know, money's being brought in.
No, 100%. And yeah, no, I think definitely like, I know people who work in like different universities or like people who are students or like master students, or even like work at other universities. And like you said, like it's not a like Brunel only thing. Like the higher education sector in the UK seems to be going through a tough time. There are concerns on like certain courses. Like I know, as you mentioned, like creative industries is definitely one that people have said that like as a whole, like I think, I've forgotten the organization's name, but like organizations have done reports on like how they're essentially like calling the government to support the creative industries and for more action to be done. I know that there are, funnily enough, organizations that we've brought on here, like Creative Mental Network, they're called Creative Studio, the Creative Studios at Roundhouse that support like young people who want to get into the creative industries. They've also like, they mentioned on their podcast, but they also have, I think Creative Mental Network have released like reports on like why creativity is a good thing and why it should be fostered in young people, whether they decide to go into a career in the creative industries or not. But I think as well, like one key thing to mention based off what you were saying, like the second thing I was going to say, was around this idea of like the like concerns within the creative industry. Cause I think like it's 2025, funnily enough, I got an email about it today. Like it's hard to not, for the topic of like, this is an AI podcast as well, but like it's hard for like stuff like AI not to be brought into the conversation, especially as like when it comes to the creative industries, you've got people that, are concerned about their jobs. They're like, will my job still be there in like a couple of years? We've had people come on to not necessarily like say people's concerns aren't needed. They said that, people's concerns are valid, but there needs to be that like sensitive approach to whether it's policy, even probably enough, like without veering too off topic. Like I know like recently this week there was, I didn't read it, but I saw like an article about like the UK government's done something around like AI. But yeah, there's always this concern about them. I think definitely, like you said, like there's a lot that the creative industries is going through at the moment. And then yeah, the final thing I wanted to touch is definitely like you said, like it's not okay for like cosplaying, yeah, especially like when it comes to class, like that's not okay. Because I think, like you said, there like people, like you said, like people have expressed, like it's been made abundantly clear through like previous people, like actors, designers, like producers, directors, whoever, like who are from working class backgrounds, who might be from like different communities, and they've expressed that like it's not easy for them to get into the room. And this isn't like to summarize like everything, but I think one key story when I like think about the creative industries and especially like making it more diverse, it was really interesting. But for Black Panther that came out in 2018, Martin Freeman, I've forgotten his character's name, but he's in the film, and like the main cast is obviously predominantly Black. So he was asked by a reporter, like, oh, how do you feel about being like one of the, like in a predominantly Black cast film, and you're sort of like one of the white people that has a main role in it. And he was just like, well, the question I think you should be really thinking about is like, how do Black actors or Black actors from like different like cultural backgrounds, how did they feel when they're going into films? Or like they're one of few Black people, or it's not an actor, like they're one of few Black people in the film, and even if they are, like it's not like one of few, it's like an inaccurate portrayal.
Yeah, it's one of few, the modeling character, and the parameters of the character is very tokenistic and stereotypical and boxing.
So yeah, I think that was a really interesting point that he mentioned, and I guess funnily enough, I saw this quite recently, but what's his name? Andy Serkis, who also is in that film, also really cool actor. He was talking about how in the film, the director, Ryan Coogler, basically was making jokes. I think he called them like Tolkien's white boys, because they were both in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So yeah, fun little fact for anyone who didn't know. But yeah, we're not of our sidetrack. We're going to go back to you, our amazing guest speaker. So yeah, we're going to start with the first question. As you mentioned, you co-found Halo Code campaign, and we would really like to know what inspired you to co-found this campaign.
Yeah.
But also, what has been the most impactful moment for you in this journey to combat Afro hair discrimination?
Unfortunately, the story behind how this campaign was founded is not as glamorous as like I think people imagine campaigns are founded. I was actually emailed, asked if I was to be a part of a campaign tackling Afro-American discrimination in the UK, and it was emailed from the staff of an activist collective of which I am the alumni of. And when I did the program many years ago, my campaign issue area was something was heritage discrimination and colorism, and specifically in relation to skin bleaching. So I felt like this is very timely because I've been wanting to do something on this. At that point, the only piece of like work I'd done on those issues was being the star of the documentary, which did very well, won an award. But for me as a campaigner, it's a long story, but basically I met Kathleen Cleaver from the Black Panther. And in the setting that I met her in, we were basically putting questions to her on, politics, activism, history, race, all these kinds of things. And the group of people that I was with, they asked her what her opinion was about the Super Bowl performance, because she, at that time, had been dressed up as Black Panther, and I thought it was really iconic and it meant something. And Kathleen Cleaver just looked at us and she's like, what did that change? What did that do? And I just remember all of us were like, we couldn't come up with a response. And that has shaped my campaigning, my organizing. Like, what did actually change? What did that do? Obviously, it could change people's opinions and make people feel something, but like tangible change in terms of like policy, legislation, and those kinds of things are really important to me in terms of creating change. Obviously, other ways you can create change in organizing and campaigning, but that's something that stuck with me. So I felt there's opportunity to really work on the issue of sexual discrimination in the UK in a real tangible way. Up until that point, all I'd done was act as a fulfilled, but like I really was struggling with what can I actually do, and like to be a part of a collective where we are working to end Afro heritage discrimination, in the sense of where you're making sure your aim be to make sure that Afro hair is added to the 2010 Equalities Act, so a second protected characteristic. That's a mouthful. To make sure that schools reinforce that it's just illegal to discriminate against a Black child for Afro hairstyle. So to workplaces to know that you cannot reject a Black person for Afro hairstyle because it happens. That's why we did this, right? It happens. If that didn't happen, we wouldn't exist. We had not a lot, but like a moderate amount of hate and people questioning why they exist, why these work, but they don't question why people are getting turned away for the one of the main things is just hair. It's just hair that why people getting rejected from their jobs, why kids who sent home from school or get to detention. If it's just hair, then those things shouldn't be happening. And we want to tackle that. And if you can't understand that, then I'm not going to say to you, that's it. Like, shut up. I personally don't engage with people who don't do change work. When it comes to CCs, I'm like, you're not doing anything, I'm doing something. I'm better than you in that sense. But yeah, so it was literally just opportunities that came about and it felt timely and right. And it's really close to my heart because I had my experience of African heritage of discrimination and not in a school, like not in the sense of like being sent away from school or being rejected from my job, but just like the people that I deemed my friends at the time making comments about my hair. My hair was always a topic of discussion without my consent. Is that you will hurt. If I said yes, they would be shocked and say, no, it's not. If I said that's not my real hair, they'd be shocked and say that it is your real hair. Like, touching it without telling me it's cool, so it's not professional, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was just timely and it's something that I'd been wanting to do for a long time.
That's incredible. What's been the most impactful moment?
Again, I think about those, what did it do, what did it change moments. So along with some others, and unfortunately I can't remember their names, but we wrote to Human Rights and the Equality Human Rights Commission, that's the name, wrote a letter, and basically we guided to reinforcing that it's illegal to discriminate against Black children for the Afro hairstyle. And that reinforcement from the Equality Human Rights Commission was a big deal. So like that is something I was like, yeah, big moment for me, meant something.
And that was really incredible. And I think the key thing that I would say, just to like emphasize what you said is, like when you see, I think like a lot of comedians talk about it is like one example. I watch a lot of comedy podcasts. I'm speaking from my perspective, but like I think a lot of people do is talk about like a lot of people are just, like not everyone is active to sort of like solve problems and look for solutions, but sometimes a lot of people happen to just be like, it's not okay. It's just like that's it. So basically I was gonna say that is like you should be definitely proud of the amazing stuff you're doing. The work is incredible. You're really driving a change that is more needed than people think and is more needed than probably people are aware of.
Thank you. I have to shout out to the team. It's not just me. There's a team of us. In the LSE side, specifically as a result of a group of young women who were on the Activism Academy program at that time. We called them the Halo Coders. They had formed their own campaign, and some of them got jumped on and supported, and now we're like a wider collective and team, and like this work can't be done alone. So shout out to all the team of the Halo Collective, the Halo Code.
Oh, thank you. We're going to go to the next question. It's all about the creation of the collective punishment. So, how did your personal experiences shape its creation?
Yeah.
Second part is, what challenges did you face in raising awareness about the impact of parental imprisonment? I guess we will put a trigger warning. Do you?
You don't have to.
We do have to. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can just put out. I'm going to be talking about parents going to prison, the criminal legal system, those kinds of things, immigration stuff, those kinds of things. So collective punishment came out of pure frustration and anger. So to keep it short and sweet, in 2019, both my parents were arrested. And as a result of that, my family then began like a series of interactions through the criminal legal system in the UK. And as a result of those interactions, my family experienced a lot of trauma and harm and still dealing with it today, still processing it. I'm probably dealing with it and processing and addressing it for a long time as individuals, as a collective, and that kind of stuff. Like I said, it came out of frustration and anger, put simply. So, we are all taught that police are good, people that commit crime, criminals are bad, and criminals should go to prison, and that's end of the conversation. But what happened when my stepfather had repeated interactions with the criminal legal system in the UK was that it, by extension, affected my family and me. So, for example, and I'm very mindful what I share because obviously some of this is my story, but it's not completely my story. I was only story of other people. But just for example, as simple as my sister's school, I thought they knew that her dad was in prison, but through having a conversation that I had to be, I found out that they didn't know. So that was like, oh, okay, they don't know. I saw social services would be deployed. Social services did not interact with my family. I thought, I was confused as to why debt collectors were like harassing us by calling our house and sending us letters. And when I get them on the phone after, I've been with them because my name's not on the account, I'm not the person who have credit with or whatever, the debt with. And they explain that he's my stepfather and he's in prison. Them umming and ahhing because they don't know what to do next. In those kinds of conversations that led me to understand that there's no guidance, there's no policy, there's no legislation for how to deal with these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then at the time I eventually I interned at Inquest, which is the only charity that looks at state-related death. So death in police custody, mental institutions, hospitals, prison, those kinds of things. When I interned there, one of my colleagues was like, there's charities that can support families like yours.
Yes.
So I got put in contact with a charity that supports families that have loved ones in prison. And through working with that charity, that's when I found out that there's much more to this issue. So, for example, that charity supports young people. In some cases, young people are left on their own. So, for example, this is just a scenario that got put to me. There's a single parent who has a child. Parent got arrested, went to prison. Child was left on their own for several months without just seeing anything and was going to school. And then eventually the police were like, you haven't seen this parent in a while, we're just going to do a welfare check. And they went to house and find out the kids on their own. Then the kids, taken by the state and supported, hopefully. In some cases, because the parents' crime is reported in the news, they said name, the age and the address. And then basically some people, depending on the crime, the nature of the crime, some people are like, oh, that's her local area, let's go and harass the family because they would have learned. assumption that the families involved, they were in on it, they know that kind of thing. So, families are harassed and having to leave everything that they know, the local environment, everything, because the community's like, we don't want you here anyway. And then in some really bad scenarios, depending on the nature of the crime again, there could be threats on the life of the family because they can't get to the person in prison, but we can get to your wife, we can get to your husband, we can get to your children, your grandchildren, whoever it is. So then I started finding out that there's academics that research this issue. And it's not just the academic research, but also the data. So we don't know exactly how many parents are in prison. This year, the government has released what they deem the most accurate numbers. So basically, 200,000 kids are impacted by parental imprisonment in England and Wales every year. But that's based on an estimate of like October 2021 to 2022, if I'm correct. But we don't know exactly how many parents are in prison because it's based on the disclosure during that period of like certain things at the time. Beyond that, the data shows that kids that have a parent in prison have worse outcomes. So poor education, mental health issues, just not thriving across the board. But there's not much data. And despite, and I don't know if you know, like childhood adverse experiences, it's like ACE, it's like a set of things that like basically, if a kid goes through these things are like worse outcomes. Yeah. And I think some people, I can't remember the exact number, but I feel like there's different numbers of what counts. That some people, there's like 9 roughly ultimate overall, no more than 10. And one of those is a child, a parent in prison, like a child losing a parent to prison. That's considered a child, adverse childhood experience. Mm. But despite it being recognized as that, by the psychological theory of like children and behavior development and that kind of stuff, there's no statutory mechanism that like when a child's parent goes to prison that like support is deployed for that child. That is not in place. So along with that, at the People My Sister support, I got her a support worker from that charity. Yeah. I got her a mental health support worker, like counselor. Her GP was clued up, got a free tutor, heavily was in the loop. And these were all people that were interacting with each other to make sure that she could thrive as much as possible despite the circumstances. So the campaign was born out of the frustration of like knowing, at this point, I don't think the system is broken, it's not working. I said the system is working exactly how it's supposed to, which is the priority with the current the current criminal legal system is punishment. Punishment, if you commit crime, you should be punished. And by extension, families are punished. Yeah. Which is quite interesting because Sad Harley, for a while now, I've been reading a book, Why Should Feminists Trust the Police? By Leo Cohen. And in there, she talks about the collective punishment ordinance of 1909. And in that, she talks about how under British colonial law, they basically put something in place where as a result of like protests happening in like, I think Kenya, during that time, basically they could punish people if they didn't report someone so if they didn't like basically snitch. Simple words. And I don't know, I'm trying to find context. But like basically just to snitch on someone who like you knew that person committed a crime, or you knew that person was going to commit a crime, but they snitch. Or I think it's also they have some sort of close proximity to that. So now international law has technically outlawed collective punishment as a practice, but technically Britain still continues it today under joint enterprise. And that means that today the Manchester 10 appeal ruling came back out, free all the Manchester 10 boys, which it's a case where simple, I would say people going to do your research on that, but simply put, 10 boys in Manchester, they basically are being sentenced on the joint enterprise for text messages, WhatsApp group chat, basically you sent a book. I'm simplifying it way more than I should be. There's Dylan Ondo, but that's I'd say we'll research that and support kids of colour who's supporting those boys. But yeah, so Britain continues collective punishment under joint enterprise, and I would make the argument that they continue it under, in the pursuit of catching someone who they believe to have committed a crime. You will be hard if you are in close proximity to the person that they want to arrest and punish. And that's my start of the campaign, out of frustration, out of recognizing that the system is not broken, it's working exactly how it's supposed to, and it's not functional because, so it's quite interesting. I mean, we can talk about this, it's a whole thing, but like in the main manifesto last year, they put in 2 sentences about the impact of parental imprisonment or on kids. So they talked about the children of prisoners, and those 2 sentences, the first sentence, they start off by saying that, well, it's something, basically they have 2 sentences. I can't remember which order, but one of the sentences is about kids that have a parent kids are more likely to commit crime. That is a lie. The data on that, there's no data that supports that. There is one academic paper which is outdated, and the sample size is like, let's just say at least 500, and like the sample size that the stat comes from is like less than 20 people, 20 men. And it's like outdated as well. Can't stress that enough. But also they stress that the solution is having a system where they can identify every child that's a parent in prison. I think that's that separately the dangerous narratives, combining it is very dangerous, because what basically you're giving the government is a data set for what they believe technically is a pool of young people who are more likely to commit crime in the future because of the actions of their parents. Which again, that's not true. There's no data that shows that, right? And in the system, in the criminal legal system in Britain, Black and brown people are disproportionately overrepresented in the criminal legal system, which means Black and brown children will be represented in that data set. And that means, and let's be honest, again, we live in a country where we are all taught that, like, if you commit a crime, you are about to go to prison, you should be punished, right? It doesn't matter what the crime is, right? If you commit a crime, you should be punished for it, to the full extent of the law. So basically, we are giving the government a pool of young people, predominantly Black and brown young people, who are more likely to commit crime in the future. I'm using quotes for those of people that are listening. What is the government going to do? Are they going to, make sure that these young people are supported? So, like, they don't, to deter them, give them all, the support that they need to thrive, to progress and have successful careers and thriving lives and excellent education. No, they are going to surveil on to these young people. And I'm pretty sure we just got rid of the gang matrix. It's like a, arguably controversial, maybe like a mini gang matrix 2.0. So there's that. And yeah, like, I'm not okay with that. That doesn't work for me. If my younger brother and sister were still under the age of 16, they would be on this data set, and things have been monitored instead of me supported to thrive and grow. And so yeah, so my campaign exists because, like I said, just anger, frustration for a system that is working exactly how it's supposed to. And like the solutions that are being put forth by the government. And I say that, so those 2 sentences were the Labour manifesto, which arguably gives a person hope that, they are aware of this issue and they're creating change in it. I'm pretty sure just the other day that they had to delete an AI TikTok where they talked about, I think it was like a TikTok trend that they jumped on, and like they deleted it, but the images are still, because nothing ever gets removed completely from the internet. One of the images is like, well, all of the images are like animals dressed as humans, and they're talking about what they're going to give, the country is like, better functioning NHS. I can't remember the other things, but like the one that scared me was like more police to make you feel safe. And it's like, how you argue for more police to make you feel safe, but you want to stop kids that have a threat in prison committing crime in the future by having a data set. More police means more people are more likely to get arrested. That doesn't mean they've necessarily done anything bad. It just means more police mean more people are going to get arrested. That doesn't necessarily mean more criminals are going to be off the street, more people that are bad will be on the streets, more people are going to get arrested, which means more families are going to be impacted. Because again, when we think of criminals, we think about like these very often men, arguably sometimes, men of color who are, educated and have mental health issues, and they're like are so far removed, and you don't think of like a mother of 2 kids who she's married and she can't pay a council tax bill, or she stole formula which actually happens. Women go to prison for those things. There are pregnant women in prison right now. Shout out to Level Up UK. They are campaigning to end pregnant women being in prison. But yeah, so that's why the campaign exists. And I think the next question was, what are the challenges? There's a lot of challenges. I think the first one is obviously people don't know about this issue. When I have conversations, people tend to assume that I want prisoners to run free right now, which is, and then I have to break it down to them. And then when I try and explain the issue further, people then assume, no, but schools are informed. No, they're not. Social services are deploying. We don't know how many parents are in prison. We don't know how many kids are impacted. What do you mean kids are left on their own? And then, we can have a wider conversation about crime and punishment. That's also a challenge because it's literally, and this is just a fact, it's about the way crime and punishment works is that what is deemed a crime today. There are things that are deemed a crime today that didn't exist a decade ago, 2 decades ago. There are crimes that there are things that are no longer deemed criminal. So it's really about what is deemed a crime today. And then in that it's, okay, because someone committed a crime, they must be punished. To deter them, you must punish them severely. And then you get into punishment, right? Because in the criminal legal system, everyone is not equal. If we have more money, more connections, more resource, depending on your gender, depending on your race, class, these kinds of things, like your experience of coming in contact with the criminal legal system varies depending on these things. Those are the first couple of challenges I think about. Funding is another challenge. Connecting with people that have lived experience. I want this campaign to be led by and shaped by people that have lived experience. There are who knows how many young adults, people over the age of 18, walking around that have had a parent in prison. And the campaign doesn't just cover people that have had a parent in prison. I'm talking about any of one, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, aunt, uncle, grandparents, cousins, whoever in your family, who their memory was prison affected you. I want this campaign to be a space where you can come, can be in community with other people who can relate to, heal, radically imagine alternatives to the way the world currently is versus I want how the world should be. But it's really hard to connect with people because people do not understand that people bury this traumatic experience very also when people connect with me. They're like, oh, yeah, my parents went to prison, and that did affect me. And I hadn't thought about it until you and your campaign, you spoke about it. Connecting with people who have this experience is really hard because people, one, haven't thought about it. Two, it's too hard for them to engage the campaign. They don't understand that collectively we have so much power to create change. They're just okay, cool, I'll support the campaign. I might even post something. I might like something. I'll fill out a form, give you a quote, but not actively involved. And they don't know we can get policy and legislation on this if we come together and organize. I'd say. And then also there's a big part of it is another challenge is just the solutions. I have my own opinion on what the solutions are, but even for the campaign, I haven't run the strategy in the campaign because I want that to be decided by the collective. I want it to be a community of people with lived experience shaping what the solutions are, writing in the solutions. And in just a wider criminal legal system, the sector's dominated by privileged white people who are far removed from the issues that they are working on. Their heart's in the right place, but black and brown people are disproportionately represented in the criminal legal system. Why other people would come up with solutions? Why they're not predominantly black and brown people who are most affected? So there's lots of challenges. Just even just me, I had to be very mindful of what I share. This is very taxing work. This is very personal. Whenever I do progress in the campaign, whenever I get a rejection letter or someone shuts me down or someone says I can't achieve what I want to achieve, I take it personally because this is my real life. I didn't make up the story that my stepfather went to prison. He actually did, and it actually impacted my life. Yeah. There was a time for me where I really I was in court. I followed my mother to court, and my friend, bless her, her aunt is a lawyer for like a council in London, and she was talking to her, and my friend is a lawyer. What's something new? I don't know what, if it's a barrister, I don't know I think it's a barrister. But basically, my friend was basically prepping me for the possibility of trying to make the case that I am responsible, worthy enough to like you are just going to get your brother and sister because you're your brother and sister. You have to make the case to a judge. If both our parents got arrested, went to prison, served their sentences, and because they're not born in this country, get deported back to the Caribbean. That was a real possibility for me. During the pandemic, while I was doing university online, that was a real reality of my life.
Really?
Yes. And while I was working full time as well, we should say. So yeah, that was a real reality in my life. Like, I can't fake that kind of trauma, that kind of pain, that kind of struggle. And as I said, there's so much more to my story, but a lot of it is not just my story. And you know, it's my stepfather's story, it's my sister's story, okay, my brother's story, it's my mother's story, it's my mommy's story, and it's not my place to tell their stories. I can make them real so much because that's what I feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a challenge doing this work. But I do not doubt that within time, I'm going to build an amazing team of lived experience people who do this work, a wider network, national, because this is not London-centric, this is not South London-centric. This is not England-centric, England well-centric. I want a national campaign. I want a national community. I want to organize and mobilize people for change.
I think the one thing I just want to touch on, based on what you said, is, like he said, I think people sometimes can forget that, like, whether it's a campaign, whether it's a business solving an issue, whether it's even just individuals just like sharing like content, like there is that story behind it, and there is those lived experiences. But I think also what's really important from what you shared was the community aspect of like, you have to get especially if you're not from a community that's like suffering. Like if you're doing work or like advocacy work in an area that you're not from, or like you can't relate to, you can't then almost act like you know the answer to all of those like issues or questions. And I think that's really key with what you said, because you were just like also what you mentioned with the Halo, that it's not just like it's not just you. Yeah. You're not like the only one deciding everything. You're not the one just like leading everything. Yeah. It's that group. And it's always like remembering that like when you've got like everyone involved, the work will be so much bigger than like if one person's like the figurehead and you need them all.
We live in a capitalist society, and I don't say that's like a secret Marxist or communist or socialist. It's just we live in a capitalist society, and a part of capitalism is individuality.
100%.
And like, especially even in the organizing space, we really love I call it the Greta Thunberg effect. We really love a standalone activist who is so intelligent and formidable and influential and wow, like they are once in a generation type person who's just like out there. And it's like Greta Thunberg does not do any of her organizing alone. The media might focus on her, but when you look at this photo, she's never by herself. She's organizing with people. She can't do this by herself.
Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get you started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live appointments when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't right for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you. More scheduling flexibility and at an affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/pickupthemic. I've also linked them down below in the description. So again, that's betterhelp.com/pickupthemic, MIC, and start your journey today.
Like, she's a part of community, she's part of movements, she's organising with others, who he is. It's just that the media likes to focus specifically on her. Lots of different reasons why. If it's because she's white, it could be because she's autistic. Like, there's so much thing behind it. But yeah, like, we really like the idea of standalone person who's just so amazing, different, and it's like, that is never the case. Like, the person I am today in this room is because of so many people that pulled into me, both my organising, but, youth workers, my friends who are like my chosen family. Like, they have pulled into me, they have challenged me, they have held me accountable, they've pushed me, they've held me up, they have nourished me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this work is it cannot be done alone.
100%.
It cannot be done alone.
100%. And I think before we go to the next question, we have our mic check, which is an interesting fact, figure, or story that's relevant to the conversation. And I forgot to mention it for the first question, but there was a 2020 study by I'm probably going to say this wrong, but the Fawcett Society. And they found that 66% Black women in the UK have faced discrimination related to their hair in the work of, have faced discrimination related to their hair in work or in education. So it highlights the importance of campaigns like the Halo Code in pursuing like equality and inclusion for basically everyone.
Yeah.
But we're going to go to the next question. And as people can see from both these questions and your answers, you are a multifaceted person. You do a lot of things and a lot of incredible work. So in addition to all of to campaigns and also the collective that you've set up, you're also a writer.
Yeah.
And you have been contributing to platforms like Gowdem and Black Ballard. So as a writer who contributes to these platforms, how do you use your personal storytelling to drive meaningful conversations and advocacy?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I like that one.
Can you say the question again?
No, that's right. So as a writer contributing to these platforms, how do you use personal storytelling to drive meaningful conversations and advocacy?
I think it's my vulnerability when I use my personal stories. Whenever I write, like, if I could choose an action title, I'd say what I aspire to is an essayist. And I do the personal is political. So I use my lived experience to spark conversations about specific things. I don't just do it flippantly. I would every article I've ever written, even if it's reactionary, which I write in a very short period of time, I still long and hard about, okay, this is something that's happened to me. I don't want to be a narcissist just telling my story because I think my life is just so much better than everyone else's. But this specific thing, what learning came from it, what happened as a result of it, how did I change, what do I want others to know? And I think long and hard about that. And when I write, that's the goal. I want people to take away something from like you sharing this. And I'm always shocked when someone's like, oh, I read your piece and it made me think of this or it resonated with me. Because I like to, that's what I aim for. But when someone actually tells me, I'm like, okay, cool. Thank you. Because that was what I was aiming for. So yeah, I think it's just my honesty. I'm not just saying it just to hear myself speak because I like talking, but like, what could I learn as a result of this? I do like this deep contemplation thing internally, and then okay, cool, I'm gonna blare it onto paper. Hopefully someone can take something good from this.
100%. And I think it's like a really key thing you mentioned there is like that honesty and vulnerability when it comes to like creating content is what makes not only like the content powerful, but also unique.
Yeah.
Because I know like through like other guest speakers who come on, share their story, through like myself or members of the team sharing our story, like we've seen people like message in and been like, oh, hey man, like you spoke about like your fears of like creating content and putting it out there because you're like putting yourself on a platform that brings possibilities of like people calling you out and like disagreeing with your own opinions. And they were saying like, it's really inspirational to like see that. Or it might be, you know, as you said, like you're writing up, you know, could be an article, could be something on LinkedIn, and you're sharing like, hey, like I've applied for like 3 jobs this week and I got rejected 3 times this week. And you know what? It's tough. But yeah, if you guys have any advice, like let me know. Like I think there's a lot of like, I don't think accessibility, or maybe accessibility is the right word, but I mean like accessible in the sense of like it allows people to connect with and relate to the content that you're putting out. So like, I think that's why sometimes people say, by this, it does have relevance. So I'm gonna, if the audience watching at home, let me land. It's like, so that's why I tell people like sometimes people are just like, oh, I don't really. So I'm based in context is, as you can see from the t-shirt, I'm a comic book fan. And people like sometimes don't like Iron Man or like they don't like Batman and they feel like they're very unrelatable characters because yes, they've suffered like tragedies and like personal losses, but ultimately they're like at the end of the day, they are rich people, like they're billionaires in both of their separate universes. But I've told people like the reason why like and even like I tell people Stan Lee even spoke about this. So the reason why like Stan Lee says that Spider-Man wears a mask is because he said it was for 2 reasons. He said one, it was for like people to always see themselves as Spider-Man. And like context is, if you don't know Spider-Man, like he's not rich. Like for the most part, he grew up as like, or not for the most part, like he grew up as a geek and as a nerd. Like he was bullied. He was like treated different. And then when you start to expand it, so now you've got like different types of like spider people. So you've got like Spider-Gwen, you've got Miles Morales Spider-Man. You've then got that like more like you can relate to each of these Spider-Man like people differently. And I think that that's one of the key things that I like about Spider-Man is he is relatable. You get the the struggle of like both trying to, well, even like, I'll be like, no, I'm not saying like superhero thing exists in the real world, but like the dual balance of that. And like, he has a regular job. Like he's a photographer for a newspaper. Like he's not making millions. So like when you see him like struggling, whether it's in comic books or games or TV shows, when you see him like struggling with rent, people just like, I get it. So I think that's one of the things that like, in my personal opinion, why Spider-Man as a superhero is quite universally known. Like whether there are people that have like
I believe he's the most popular. Is he the most popular? That I remember when I found out, I was like, that shocked me. It's a couple of years ago. And like, I don't know if that's still the case now, but at the time, a couple of years ago, he was the most popular superhero ever.
And I think that's part of it because like I said, one, when he's wearing the mask, like you don't know who he is, you can feel that like relation to your personal experience, but also he is ultimately like a lot of superheroes, he's like the street, he's like the closest, like he's the closest
everyday guy.
He's struggling with his rent, the job doesn't pay well, like, and I think it's that, and like people say like one of the, and like, I could go on forever, but like the fun thing I say is people do like the understanding of like ultimately like with his powers and all of like this, he could go down a completely different route. And I think it's the relatability that like, not necessarily like everyone's in the same position, but like there are times when you see him like want to quit and he's just like, no, like there are, like we said, like there are other people in my story that like understand the importance of like what I do, or like there are other people that if I stop doing what I'm doing, like it's going to impact them.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's Spider-Man because he's saying in his head like, oh, if I'm not Spider-Man, like he doesn't get paid to be Spider-Man. So it's not like he's saying like, I don't do it. Like my extended family, whether it's like biological or otherwise, like is not going to be supported. But it's more of like, he understands that like there are people in New York that like relate to him on a daily basis. And even when like people in New York hate him, he's never like, yeah, I'm leaving New York. Or like, I'm never going to, like even when he does like put down the costume, he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, he always comes back to it.
Yeah. And
I think that's, from a, I guess, creative perspective and like a writer perspective, that's what's always great about like every Spider person is there's that level of relatability and it just comes from that initial vision.
I mean, as a complaint, I can relate to that. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a whole other conversation, but the race riots last year, lots of people got arrested
And I was like, lots of those people are parents because they in the book, the kids were there and sorry, saying this.
No.
Someone's there so distracting me. But yeah, so lots of parents were arrested. And I was like, oh, by default, their kids are who I'm campaigning for. But these people, some of them are actually racist. They actually don't want me in the country. Am I going to stop this campaign? No. But, they benefit from my work. They don't think I belong in this country. It's a point of contention. So, like, when you said that about Spider-Man, I relate to that as a campaigner.
100%. Yeah, that's why I feel like as a superhero, he just gets, there's a lot of relatability to like personal life. And that's why he's one of my favorites. Dave, we're going to the last question before we go to passing mic, where I will allow Jemmar to ask me a question. This last question is looking to the future. So it's looking to young people who, maybe similar to you, they want to turn their personal stories and experiences into powerful campaigns. So what advice would you give to young people who are looking to do this? So they're looking to turn their personal experiences into powerful campaigns that can create lasting change.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. I feel like I definitely I'm privileged in this regard because when I was a teenager, I joined an activist fellowship, social justice fellowship. So I was literally incubated to be the person I am today. And I'm still learning as an organizer, as a campaigner. But that being said, because I just know the space, not very well, just quite well, I would say first start by, getting together with your friends and starting like a reading group. Books are an amazing way to learn so much different things. And you can learn a lot about like, not just activism and organising and movement building, but also you can learn about like politics and history and culture and sociology. And you get some, read a chapter a week and dissect, discuss, challenge, have a conversation as they start there. I'd say follow some activist collectives on social media. There's amazing people. I can't think of any specific individuals in this moment of time, but like the Advocacy Academy and Kinfolk, Kinfolk specifically for Black Organised in the UK, but you can still like follow, engage. There's some amazing organising collectives out there. There's amazing organising collectives that teach you organising. So you can do like a training. Like I signed up to a training recently of like project management for organisers, like how to like get things done as an organiser. I had another training where it teaches me about movement building. So like, there are trainings out there, both online and in person, where you can learn about movement building, organising, social justice, campaigning, all of these things, and all the other topics, obviously the history, the culture. So yeah, I'd just say read books, convene together, being community with each other. And also just on social media, find the right organizations and collectives and people out there. And that's the way to start, basically. That's the place to start.
100%. I think, like you said there, I think books, we mentioned it here. We've always said that, like, there's so much, like, there's always something you can learn. And I think you'll be, like, especially, like, to our university audience, like, we do talk about, like, there are free training or, like, free stuff that you can get while being a uni student. So, like, for example, we mentioned with Brunel. I don't know if they still do it, but when I was there as a student, but also when I was working there a bit as staff, like, they would give staff and students access to LinkedIn Learning for free. And like LinkedIn Learn, I think, it was just LinkedIn Learning. But LinkedIn Learning to me is like if I had the finances to pay for LinkedIn Premium, I would pay for LinkedIn Learning. Like, there are so many useful courses on there. And I think what I like is that they're not all like limited. So like, a lot of people think, oh, it's like a huge investment, but like the courses are always broken up into like shorter videos. So even if a course is like an hour and a half long, each video might be like 5 minutes, and then we'll have like chapters. Sometimes the chapters will have like a quiz. So it might be like, okay, cool. So you've like finished this chapter. We're going to give you a quiz so you can like remember. You can also make notes as well. So you can make notes while you're like reading each chapter, and those save to those chapters on LinkedIn Learning. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, I have to like write it down or save in a Word document and then worry about it going. Like, no, any course that you complete, you can save the notes. It's also handy because any course that you do gets added to your, like, once you complete it, it automatically is added to your LinkedIn profile. So I think when it came towards the end of mine, like there were a lot of like short courses on like you said, like project management. There were ones on like setting goals. There were one about like public speaking. There was some,
which are all very good things for organizing.
100%. And like there were like I forgot the person's name, but there was one person like she specializes in like she calls it like nano tips? Yeah, nano tips. But her videos were like her courses were max like 5 minutes, but all of them are like short form content that was made into a course, so you could just learn about like quickly like how to like effectively come up with goals for yourself as like a business, or like how do you effectively like network in a room. And like what I liked about that was if I didn't have the time to invest like in a long, like maybe it was, I don't know, I'm like at my desk, I'm like, you know, I wanted something to be playing in the background, or like I want to be passively working on something while, you know, hearing this. I was like, cool, I can just put this in. I'm learning from it. I was taking notes on key stuff. And yeah, I feel like that's something that people don't like always think about, is like there are some free stuff you get. But also, I would also say like certain organizations have like educational platforms. So I said like with my workplace, they have for both members of the space, but also for like staff members, they have this online portal that has like free it's got like guides on like, it's more like personal stuff. So like it does have like budgeting. It's got stuff on like relationships. It's got stuff on like health. Like it's got a lot of stuff that can like help you learn. And it's all like short, like it's like the documents are no more than like 2 pages. So it's like short information. But it's really, I agree with you, like learning stuff is always beneficial. And yeah, the final thing I was going to say was, like we said, like, I think a lot of people don't realize like campaigns, businesses, like any work, like sometimes just comes from that like friendship group. I don't remember the writer, but I think it was the person who did Frankenstein. But anyways, there's this whole like writers guild that like, cause I know they've done like films on it, but it was like a group of writers would like they'd go away somewhere and like all of them would like work on stuff. In the same way that, like, again, talking about my like comic book history, like Marvel Studios, who makes like all the Marvel films now, or most of them, they have a yearly retreat where everyone who's like involved in it goes away. I think it's around like September or October. That they go away for like, I don't know if it's a whole week, if it's the weekend, but they go away to this resort, and it's like because it's Marvel's, everything's like shut down, so people don't really know what's being discussed. But it's one of those things where they like go and it's in the mindset of like, okay, cool, we're going to work on the next year, or we're going to figure out like, we've had these issues, people have raised these complaints, we're going to solve it. Same with like Star Wars. So the person who created Star Wars, George Lucas, he's got his ranch. Again, same thing. So I think a lot of people like generally don't always think about like, there is that active, like, there is something that comes from just going away and like working with like your immediate network. And even if you, I guess the final thing I'll say is, even if you don't feel like there's anyone in your immediate network that, you know, is interested, supported, like can help, I'd say like, two things I would say is check out like online platforms. So like LinkedIn, great place. Most people put what they're interested in their bio. Most people also on LinkedIn are happy to connect with people outside of their network. A lot of people on the podcast have come through that. But in addition to that as well, like I would say there are like pages like on Instagram, maybe there are Discord servers, like there are like community hubs set up that allow people to like collaborate and work together. So yeah, I always tell people like, look, if you don't have anything in your immediate community, look online. But then also there's spaces like co-working spaces, as you mentioned. You know, there are programs that bring people together and encourage and look for that, like actively look for that collaboration. So yeah, just that would be my advice. Yeah, we're going to go to passing the mic. Obviously, I'm not physically passing the mic, but I'm going to hand over to Jemmar to ask me a question or a series of questions. Yeah, it can relate to the topic. It can be completely random, whatever you'd like to ask. Go ahead.
I feel like, I don't know how many questions I'm going to ask you, but I feel like the first one is definitely going to be related to the topic. So, we're on the spot, but is yes a campaign tomorrow? What would you campaign on and why?
Good question. Oof. A lot of cop-out ones. So I'll start with that and then so my cop-out answer would be like sort of like what you like pick up the mic is not a campaign, but like pick up the mic started because there's a lot of resources and like tools that universities have that students don't know about.
Yeah, that's right. Very well. Very well.
It's one of those things that like I felt so pick up the mic started because in 2020 I went to the all-out campaign to be the BNE officer at Brunel within the student union. Couldn't go in person to campaign because, as you mentioned, like pandemic, like everyone was at home, so it was a lot of like online campaigning.
Wait, you campaigned? You went to be the BNE officer after I did it? I did not know that. It's the same fact.
Yeah, so it's literally, so funny enough, someone from the union mentioned like, oh, actually, like no one's applied for it.
Which is what happened with me.
And it was like, oh, we know you do a lot of like work with like students and stuff. Like you work, like they were just like, we know that you. And I'd have previously like applied for a position in the studio. So it was like, based on what you do, like I think it would be good for you to put an application in. I was like, yeah, why not? I was also just like it's part time anyway, so I was just like I could do it alongside my studies. But yeah, the biggest thing that came from it was like I was telling students like, oh, I feel like we should work with more like Black-owned organizations for placements. I said, did you guys know about like that Brunel has an entrepreneurship fund that gives £10,000, like a pot of £10,000 divided up to like businesses based on their entrepreneurial ideas. I said it's only available to alumni of 3 years and current students. I said the Entrepreneur Hub offers you like support throughout that whole process. So it's not like, oh, you're going to apply. You have to have like a polished business plan, polished like pitch, and like we will support you. It's like, no, they give you one-to-one support. So yeah, I was like talking about all these things, and then like people were just like, really, Brunel just like a pot of money, and like he's an student. And I was like, yeah, like you guys know this? And I was like, no, I never heard about this.
Yeah, when I was there, the really good one was like people needed CV help. I'm like, you have like people out there, Professional Development Center, they literally will help you with your CV. By the time I left Brunel, my CV was perfection, actually. I know to write an amazing CV as a result of working with them every single year.
And I tell people like and I think also adding on to that, like people also do forget that like sometimes people think it's only for like when you're a student. I was just like, no, there's school again with the entrepreneurship competition. It's like accessible 3 years after you graduate.
It's funny because technically we are you paid for that, and you're paying for that for like the 4 years that you're there, and coverage covers another 3 years after. That's 6 years of like you can get held with your career. Why would you not take it up?
100%. And I feel like that's like, if I was to do a campaign, it would be that, because like the amount of students, even to this day, that like don't know about that stuff or like don't know about Brunel. The biggest one that I saw, I didn't even know this. This was like after I graduated, someone on the podcast came on and said it. Brunel can offer support so Brunel can, I forgot what the test is called, but for anyone, like if they think that they have like a learning difficulty, Brunel can basically like help to support with that test. So someone who was on the podcast, she believed that she had, I think it was ADHD.
Oh, I got diagnosed with ADHD at Brunel.
And like, I was just like, Brunel does it. She was like, yeah. She was like, the only unfortunate thing was literally the day she submitted her last exam, that's when the diagnosis like came in. So she was just like, oh, that would have been good to know like beforehand. And she was like, all right, at least I know from graduating, like,
yeah, I really enjoyed you that first year. I found out during my placement year that's when it was put to me many of ADHD, and that's when I got it. And it didn't really help because for my final year, pandemic year, so it didn't really, I think it made a little bit of a difference, but not much, but yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like there's, like, it's not even to, like, being the teams that, like, work in these areas. Like, as someone who's worked at university and, like, works in different parts, like,
Same.
I also understand that, like, there is, like, sometimes you're just not the focus.
There's a massive disconnect. It's very interesting because, like, they come on new talks during our lectures and that kind of stuff. We get the leaflets, we get the emails,
but it just doesn't register with students. It's quite interesting. I feel like there's research like me done just on that.
100%.
Because like, yeah, like, and even just like going off the tangent, but just like, I remember when I realized that like, you just go and talk to your lecturer. It's like, just email, can I come see what it is? And talk about the essay before I write it, after I write it. And they love that. I did better in modules where like, I started lecturing beforehand. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a bit.
Okay. Do I have another question for you? I don't know.
I mean, really good.
I can ask you about would you do this podcast in time? Have you been asked that before?
No, that's about all I've been asked it, but yeah, I think about it a lot. I'm told people like it's more because like currently pick up them. Like if pick up the mic and paying like a full-time salary, I would 100% do it full-time. Like I love doing it. I love like the people that I meet. I love so like I've got a team of like friends and like friends of friends that like help volunteer and like support in different aspects. And like I love working with these guys. Last year we joined, so Brunel has like the summer again, that's another thing people didn't know about. There's the Brunel summer internship scheme that's like a internship scheme for students that maybe don't want to commit to doing like a placement over the summer. They don't want to do a placement year, but they want to get work experience. So they can join this internship scheme in their first year and they get access to like work in either a small organization or a bigger organization. And last year was the first time I'd ever done it. And like, it was really interesting because it was nice to like, I guess, manage people in more of like an official like work capacity. Cause we've had like other people who've like reached out and said, oh, I need to do like filming as a part of my like uni degree. And I've been like, that's cool. But I guess this was the more like official one. So I have like a contract from Brunel. There was a contract like we had to sign stuff, the student had to sign. So there was more like an official process. And I think it was interesting to like gain that like managerial experience because that's what I say like through my like part-time job, I don't get that. But it's for me it's nice to like gain that skill and like know that now like honestly I'm like at a stage, like I would say I'm more at a stage where I'm like I would feel like for a managerial role I could apply for and like I've gotten that experience. And whereas before where like especially before like there was anyone really even involved in pick up the mic and it was just myself and two of my friends. Like where we are now, I'm like, yeah, no, like I do like manage a team of people and I do like do all of this stuff. So yeah, I would do it full time. I've definitely had ideas about like what it would look like. Would I want like a big office? Would I want to like use a co-working space, which seems to be like the future for like working, but that's a whole other conversation. I even funnily enough thought about like, I mean, people may know where I work based off like stuff I post, but like even from like, without trying to bait out my workplace, like I thought as well about like, if I was to get like, you know, pick up my full time, we got enough money to like rent an office. I was like, would I just rent an office like within my workplace? And I was like quit my job and then rent an office. And I was like, yeah, it would be interesting. But yeah, I definitely like, to answer your question, definitely it's something that I've considered. It's something that I don't want to like rush into. I also know that like that's also one of the biggest things I've learned from like last year to this year is like, because of changes in the like higher education sector, that's meant that like certain things that we were possibly thinking last year, like, oh cool, we got paid for this, we could get paid for it again. It's like this year it's like, probably not, or like a no already. So for us, it's about like, if there was a constant flow of revenue in, it would definitely be something that I'd be up for doing. But yeah, let's also say like, I never will do pick up the mic full time. I'm working towards doing it full time because I also do see, as I'm sure you'll agree as someone who works on campaigns, or like, not even just like, you have to be a campaigner or a business owner. But I think one of the biggest things, especially like over the last few years, and I think for me, probably the biggest eye-opener was COVID, it's like seeing a lot of people like put all their work and time and effort and like get like into different things. So I'm talking about like healthcare professionals during COVID. I'm talking about like the like people who were like on site for like I knew people like a friend of mine. He worked for Brunel. We're doing like a campaign thing to support like students. This was in like 2021. So like we still were in that weird like restriction, but no restriction area. It was making people feel welcome and like supporting their mental health. And I was like, all these people are doing all this like incredible work. And then it can sometimes feel like the people at the top like are so disconnected and don't really care.
Yeah.
And they're like I think like like people, not even just my sister, like or like family, but like I think people said it best. Like everyone was clapping for the NHS. Everyone was just like, oh, you know, it's this great work that they're doing, clapping and all of this. And then when people were just like, oh, it's underfunded, or like, oh, you need to support like our doctors and nurses a lot better than we currently are. It's like, I mean, I don't like, we can try and stuff like that. So I think for me, the reason why I want to do that like full time is because I'm like, oh no, like I know what, like as someone who's been an employee, and I might not have been an employee in many organizations or like for as long as like other people who are like maybe big CEOs or whatever. I think as someone who's like been an employee, I'm like, I know what I'd like from like a manager. I also know what I'd want from like the head of an organization. So to me, I'm just like, and that's not to say like every organization I've worked at, like I don't like my manager or I don't like the head of an organization. That's definitely not the case now. But that's to say that I'm like, if I can see people doing that and I'm like, they're maybe, like I said, they're managers, they're heads of organizations, I'm like, what's stopping me from doing that and ensuring that like my workplace has like a good policy and is like a good place. So yeah, I would love to do pick up my full time. It's the answer to
Cool. So I have a third question. I like doing things in threes.
Same here.
Do you feel like you know about? What other plans for people like 2025? Do you have any goals?
Working on those at the moment, both for myself and pick up the mic. I think the biggest thing, you know, I don't want to announce it just yet.
Do you not announce? Just share what you can share.
No big plans. Definitely want to do more. So definitely, I guess the biggest thing I have to say is like, yeah, I'm breaking down. So look, I in the same vein of doing things in threes. So one is we're doing more community-based stuff. So like, we're doing more collabs, working with some of the people we worked with last year, having a lot of early conversations on like how we can work together this year and like potentially like expand on that relationship. Because I think, yeah, the biggest thing that through pick up mic is that there's a lot of cool businesses that do stuff, but like they either don't know like spaces that they can do events in, or they don't know how to like connect with like, I don't know, like a target audience. So maybe they want to work with young people, but they don't have to get there. So I think one of the things that we've like enjoyed from like start to now is like, to me personally, I like introducing people to each other. So if someone tells me, oh, I'm looking for like a guest speaker who's like really cool and has like an interesting story, I'll be like, cool. These are the three people that have been on the podcast. I can send you a link to the episode that they've been on. So if you want to hear them speak, but I'm like, yeah, if you want to work with them, they're really cool. They're really chill. There are people who reach out to me and they're just like, Jeffrey, you do like video content. Do you know how, like, do you have a videographer who can do X? And I'm just like, yeah, I know this person. So community aspect in that aspect. Secondly, on a more like pick up the mic level, like within us as an organization, we want to like give our flowers to people in our community. So that's definitely something we want to do more this year. We want to sort of like dig in and like share the work of like those around us, because there's a lot of cool businesses, even as businesses, a lot of cool people that we like you've met through this journey. And like some of them, I mean, the big like thing that's been like my favorite part is like some of them are like random people, like the only reason you know each other is either through through a friend of a friend or like through LinkedIn. So I'll just send them the DMs, be like, hey, and like a good relationship like flourish from that.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, they're like there was someone I used to do air cadets with, like, yeah, maybe like 9 or 10 years ago. We got in touch again like last year. It turns out he like started his own podcast, invited me on. We've been in touch like ever since. And like for me, in my head, I'm just like, oh, that's really cool. Like I was seeing like I'm both to know he knew that I was in podcasts and stuff. I didn't know he was. So you just randomly like he reached out to me and like we got talking again. And I recommended, like, he was looking for a co-working place to work at. I recommended him one. So for me, it's just like really inspirational to see like that aspect to more of your files people within our network. And I think finally, like on a more personal level, I guess, like with my like director and founder hat on, I want to do more like delegation. Because like, I think
Why did you say it like that?
I think it's more like, with me, I'm like, my thinking is, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. So even like, arguably when it comes to like editing videos, I'm like, okay, I don't know how to like edit it. Let me just like,
Yeah.
like, I was like, I could just grade it, but I could just do it. But I think the biggest thing that I've
Trust your community, Jeffrey.
said, and I feel like that was one of the, because like I was talking to someone through my workplace about it, and I was like, there was times last year, like, I don't know, maybe have like a work event the previous day that I was managing, then I do like a recording, I work, then do a recording, then I'd be out at like, I'm catching up with a friend I hadn't seen for a while, I don't want to move it, and I was getting to certain points where I was like,
burn out.
And I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't like even I was just like, right, it's still the case. And at least one of the recordings, but usually around winter, I'm getting a cold and it's like rough. But I was like, yeah. I was like, if I can get through the end of this year, and like, there were times early on, but like later on in the year, I was like, damn, like, whole December, like, no serious cold, no time just to take off work. I was like, damn. This is good, I'm doing good. And I think a big key to that was like not putting pressure on my, like feeling like I have to do everything and understanding I can reach out to people. So yeah, those would be the three things. So
Yeah, it's not very good days.
thank you very much. Yeah, into the next section, MC of the Monk, organizational, individual, we're going to highlight for this episode. And I think, especially with like, as a team and as a podcast, we're very big on mental health, and particularly as we are discussing like the work you use to support children impacted by parental imprisonment, but also what we do to support like young people. We've mentioned it before, but we think they'd be really good to discuss. The Young Minds, they do incredible work to support young people and their mental health. They actually like pull out a lot of resources that can be used. Like both if you work with young people, but also if you are a young person and you have like questions, concerns, you know, you want support, all of this, they've got like different resources on their website that, you know, we think as a team is really like beneficial and is good to be aware of. I've also said like, especially when it's just like working with young people, that can be a really good thing because sometimes like people do think like if I'm looking at mental health resources, I can only look like for myself. And not necessarily like if I'm working with young people, and even like through my workplace, like they did like neurodiversity training, and like I'm not I don't think I'm neurodiverse. I'm like done the test, but like I'm not neurodiverse. But I found the test found the workshop like very beneficial because it was like, I work with neurodiverse people. People on the program I support are neurodiverse. So for me, it's like really interesting to learn about how I can support people that I'm working with better, because it's like if I know how I can like support you, I can like make things easier for you or like more accessible, I'm like, cool, that means that you're gonna have a good time and you're gonna enjoy yourself and you're not gonna be worrying like, oh, people might not be happy that I'm doing X, but I'm only doing it this way because, you know, that's how I learn or that's how I like take notes and things like that. So I really like resources like this, so it also shows you like how you can like read more about supporting other people. The biggest one that I always tell people, it's not fun enough by Young Minds, but Mind UK, our mental health charity, they do a lot of resources. Like when I saw it, I was like, this is amazing. So they do resources on like if you manage people with a mental health condition, if you work under someone with like a mental health condition, what you should be aware of when you're discussing mental health within the workplace, discussing it with your family, discussing it with friends. And I think to me personally, that's like really great, again, because like you can gain that experience and knowledge. And even if you're not a manager currently, you can use it to be like, oh, like if I was a manager, or even I'd really like to say, if you feel like, you know, you don't want to have a conversation to your manager about your own mental health, you could be like, hey, look, like there's this resource. I'm not saying like you're a bad manager, I don't trust you, or I feel like your management style isn't great, but it's like, hey, I don't actually know how to talk about my mental health with you, but there's this resource that I think may be able to help us discuss it in like a one-to-one meeting. And you can be like, hey, look, like, let me know your thoughts. We can go from there. But yeah, I feel like those resources are really useful to like supporting people. So yeah, check both of those out. But they are MCs of the month. Cool for last session. The last session before we end the episode, which is our takeaway session.
And yeah, I know I've been like promising throughout last year they will be sponsored with food. We are definitely, London, delivery, just or food vendors. Want to hit me up? Let me know. We can leave email address that pop up on the screen. But yeah, the simplest section was always about a message that our audience can go home with. And I think, Jemmar, it's been like incredible speaking to you about, like I said, like you're doing a lot of different work. It's incredible. So, based on everything we've talked about today, we've talked about like a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
What would be your one message you want our audience to take home with them?
You can find love, healing, strength, joy, nourishment within community.
That's perfect. I like that. And I think
Also, escapism from burnout and community.
I think it's definitely true, and it's one of those things where I think community is definitely the importance of community. I guess is a better way to phrase it. Is underrated and isn't emphasized as much as it should be.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to like add on to what you just said there was you mentioned it actually earlier, and I forgot to talk about it. Was the idea of like family and like yes, you have your like biological family that you're born into, but in certain cultures, and I know like in certain like the way people like I'm Nigerian, so like even people who aren't necessarily Nigerian or like blood related to you, you do call like aunties and uncles. And the emphasis is like you've got this wide group of people that helps make you who you are.
Yeah.
And people, so what I was saying about the two families is that people say like you've got your family that you're born into, and then you've got your family that you like find. And those are people that like maybe it's work, maybe it's through uni, maybe it's through like going to events and all of this kind of stuff. But you have that second family that you can depend on and trust on. And so yeah, definitely agree. But yeah, we're coming to the end of today's episode. As I mentioned, it's been great discussing all these incredible stuff that you are doing. This is where we now open up to you. So how can people, so there's three things. How can people connect? How can people learn more about all the incredible work you're doing? Any pages they should follow, websites they should check out, things like that. And very finally, as our first episode, and I think across all our channels, you're the first episode of 2025. Have you got something coming up in 2025 that people should be aware of?
It's got a couple of things coming up. Collective Management, we're hoping to host some solidarity spaces in person in London. Hopefully the first one's in March. Please follow us on socials for more details. So all socials, it's CP and then campaign_UK. So CPC, and then after that second C, finish it off with campaign_UK across all platforms. That's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's TikTok. We have a Related Collective Management campaign. We have a Facebook page. I'm hoping to build a group, a collective, a movement. We have a wider organising team and a core organising team. If anyone wants to get involved in organising with us, please reach out. Our email is info@collectivemanagement.uk. I'm on the website, collectivemanagement.uk. If you want to connect with me personally, it's at Jemmar across all platforms. I think that's really it.
Perfect. Cool. Consider that. Thank you to you, our wonderful audience. I'm Matt for another episode of The Student Guide. If you like this episode, like, comment, subscribe, always appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any more episodes of The Student Guide or any of the episodes on the Pick Up on my YouTube channel, then please make sure that you click that notification bell. If you are listening on Spotify, you can also, I forgot to mention as well, I didn't know this, so this is why it's new. You can also rate us 5 stars if you do. And then, the final thing to just be aware of is two final things is if you want to support Pick Up the Mic, you also want to receive some discounts. We will be doing more events. Some of these events will be paid. So if you're looking for a discount on these events, then do become a Patreon member. Link is in the show notes below. And finally, if you want to check out our other content, so if you want to learn more about sci-fi and fantasy, you've got the Two Maces channel. If you want to know more about the world of anime, you've got Seven Things of Anime. And finally, if you love gaming and you want to hear about how you can get into gaming and different aspects of that, please do check out the controller. I can say now, and since I'm doing it in video format, it's better than I have to stick with that. But yeah, we'll hear more and then across those channels. Mainly put out stuff on this channel. So yeah, please, if you are interested, make sure you'll subscribe to those channels as well, because we've got big things coming to see. So yeah, I'm gonna rip on the episode there, close up this chapter. Let's just shoot a guide. We'll see you in the next episode with our new speaker and our new topic. So that's a bye from us here. Have a wonderful day. Come on.